Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Little Likac podcast, episode 46. It is the end of year review because today is the 31st of December 2022. So I'm going to go through a few things with you today about what I have achieved in 2022 and some plans for what I'm hoping to achieve in 2023. So yeah, welcome to today's podcast. My name is Amanda and I'm coming to you from Derby in the UK. Firstly, I should have podcast last week. I did say that I would try and do one on Christmas Eve or the day before, but actually I wasn't very well, and one of the things I was really struggling with was a really bad cough. So I was all bunged up anyway, so my voice was a little bit dodgy, and I was coughing constantly Friday, Saturday, even Christmas Day a bit as well. So I just wasn't up to podcasting. I did have a few things to show you, but probably not a huge amount. So I've even written things down today to try and be a little bit more organised. I've got this beautiful diary, day to a page diary that I bought in the summer and started using in September, and then I must admit it doesn't get used as much as it should, so I'm aiming to use it more as well for keeping track of things. So yeah, what have I got to show you today? I've got a finished object, some works in progress. I'm going to talk a little bit about my Make 9 from the beginning of the year. What have I achieved on that? What haven't I? I've got a new cast on to show you. I'm going to talk about a new make along that we're going to be running next year, which is a Crack the Whip make along, which we're going to be running for at least the first 3 months of the year, and maybe if it works well we might do it all the way through the year. I've got plans for January. I haven't created a new Make 9 as such, which I'll talk about when I'm talking about my plans, okay? And then also a little update about the Mystery Yarn Club for next year. I'm saying next year, by the time you're watching this, it probably will be 2023, because as I say, it is New Year's Eve today. I will edit this and hopefully get it up this evening, but you probably won't watch it. I'm sure you've got far more interesting things to do than be watching knitting podcasts on New Year's Eve. So yes, it probably is 2023 by the time you get to see this. Okay, so let's start with my finished object. You might have already spotted it. So this is the wrap that I was making with my Advent calendar, and oh my goodness me, so you'd already seen the first part of it. So I was holding it double because I'd got a 4-ply fingering weight Advent calendar. It was my own one, Little Likac one. So it's held double because this pattern, which is the Wrap It Real Good by Ambah O'Brien, this pattern calls for DK yarn. You know, I'd got my heart set on doing this pattern before I realised it was DK, so I just held it double, which I also think worked quite well because it did mean that it was relatively easy to keep up with the knitting on this each day. So this was on the theme of the Nutcracker, and all the different colourways had a different name, mostly characters and a few of the settings. So for example, that one was Land of Sweets. These ones here with Dewdrop Fairy and the Shepherdess, more of the pastoral scenes. And then in the last few days we had, Madam Ginger, we had coffee from Arabia, Spain, chocolate from Spain in the last few days, which if you know the Nutcracker story, particularly when it's done as a ballet, you'll know that, you might be aware that Clara goes on this magical fantasy adventure and visits the Land of Sweets and visits the Waltz of Flowers and goes to through snowflakes and all of these beautiful, beautiful scenes basically, which works really well as a ballet and worked really well as an Advent calendar theme. So here is my completed wrap. I absolutely love it. I used the sparkle base, so you can just see. So I had it on the sparkle base. I did do 2 options this year. So that is my finished wrap. I wore it on Christmas Eve actually. Christmas Eve I'd got a black dress on, just like a very simple black dress and black leggings, and we went to the Christingle service at our village church, which was really pretty, and I wore this, so I'd got all black and then this pop of sparkly colour, And one of the ladies I know came over to me and said, "Oh, Amanda, I love that." And then she said, "Have you made it yourself?" I said, "Yes, it's literally just come off the needles this afternoon." And I was really good that I kind of weaved in the ends as I went, and then so I just had those to trim. I haven't blocked it. I'm not really sure if it needs blocking either, because I like the fact that it's kind of squishy, and yeah. So the yarn is really, really soft. The colours have worked beautifully as kind of like a fade, and I'm just really, really pleased with it. It's just lovely. So yes, that is my finished object, and I did finish it on the 24th of December. Did I cheat? I'm trying to think. I got behind, so I had 3 or 4 yarns to wind, but what I was finding was actually hand winding the yarn was also taking quite a bit of time. So when I had got behind, I'd got 4 or 5 to put in, I wound those on my winder, my machine, and that was actually much easier as well for creating a double centre pull. So I did cheat as well. I think I took out day 24 on the 23rd and wound the 23rd and 24th together, but I didn't knit the 24th until that day. So I did cheat a tiny bit. So that is just, oh, I love it, absolutely love it, love it, love it. I'll hold it like that there in the hopes that that will be the thumbnail. Okay, so I think that is the only finished object. No, it's not the only finished object. The other finished object is Amelia's hat. So last time I podcast, I think I had got this mostly finished, and then I think I finished it off that evening. Would that be about right? Yes, I finished it on the Sunday. So I gave it to her for Christmas. She really loved it, and in fact one of the biggest compliments I think as a knitter you can get is when she opened it, she was like, "Oh wow, you got one." And I went, because she had asked for a hat, and I said, "No, I haven't got one, I made you." She went, "You made it?" I said, "Yes, I made it." And bear in mind, she sees me knitting all the time, whatever, knows what I can make. She was like, "Oh, I thought it was shop bought." To me, that is a compliment, especially from a 17-year-old. So yes, she absolutely loves it. She's really pleased with it. Let me see if I can put it on. It doesn't look as good on me as it does on her. But there you go. This is the Cheering Hat by Helen Stewart. And the colour, or the yarn that I used, is Merino, King Cole Merino blend, DK. And this was the colour Oatmeal, which is shade 41, which is absolutely the absolute perfect colour that she wanted as well. I had to get the Pom Poms at quite short notice, so I'm afraid I did use Amazon to order them. So that got, because also we had all those postal strikes and I didn't know where I could get one if I went into town to try and get any. I actually ended up buying a pack of 12 Pom Poms, because partly as well because I didn't know which colour to go with, so it gave me a choice and I could put. And I have now got quite a few Pom Poms, but I have an idea for something I want to try to do in 2023, which is going to include knitting more things for other people. If I'm really honest, I don't know how achievable the full plan is, but I'll tell you about it later. And if so, some of those Pom Poms will probably get used in that plan. So yeah, 2 finished objects. I thought I'd only got 1, but actually it was 2. So yes, that was the Cheering Hat by Helen Stewart. It was part of her, what does she call hers? Advent knitting. I can't think what she calls it now. Radvent is the Ambah O'Brien one. Knitvent. Knitvent is the Helen Stewart one, and it was part of the Knitvent from a couple of years ago. So yeah, she really likes it. I think I'm going to knit her another one in pink as well. I've got some pink acrylic that I used to make her a cardigan, and she really likes that cardigan, so I may well do her a pink one in the same style with a white pom-pom on it. I think will go nicely. Okay, so yeah, so let's talk about what I made in 2022. So last year when I did this, I had made so many pairs of socks in 2021, and this year the sock count is very, very low. And instead, actually, the toys is very high, and the adult garments is actually quite high as well. So this year I have made, I'm just going to be, hold this up here. I have made this year 3 shawls or wraps, which includes the that one. So I made that one, the rocket shawl, not rocket shawl, something rock your shawl, I think it was called, and the spindrift shawl. I've made 3 hats, so that one, I made a beret, and I've done a colourwork hat. I've only completed 4 pairs of socks, which is really, really unusual for me for the last few years, because I say last year I did 23 pairs of socks. If you've seen the last podcast I did from 2 weeks ago, which was a whip parade, you will see I've got lots of socks that are half finished, and actually that's one of the things I want to sort in the first few months of 2023, is getting some of those socks finished. So the sock count for next year will definitely be higher. But toys, I've made loads of little toys, and now that's partly because in the summer I made 26 little worry worms, I think it was 26, for my year 11 class, who were just before they did their GCSEs. And so I crocheted those, and I kind of then crocheted a few other little toys. So I crocheted something for my daughter, a little dinosaur, and then a few other bits and pieces. And when I totted it up, something like 34 little toys, all small little amigurumi toys that I made. Adult garments, so I've made a lot of garments for myself this year. Starting with the love note, I did that in January, which was one of the things on my Make 9. So I made the love note, I made the moonglade tee, which is beautiful. I did a cotton top, 7 senses. I did a test knit at the beginning of the year, cardigan, Carmencita. I finished off my colour block jumper at the start of the year. What else did I knit garment wise for adults? I knitted the vest top for the theatre, the colourwork vest top. I knitted a sort of cropped jumper for my daughter. Oh, I knitted a Colourworks Jennifer Steingast jumper for my other daughter. So yeah, 10 adult garments, which I think is pretty good. 3 children's garments, that includes a dress for Bryony, a jumper for Bryony, and then I think there was a jumper for a friend's little boy. 1 pair of mittens, which were the Colourwork mittens, I did in October, and a blanket, which was just a baby blanket. So, but all together, if we include the 34 different toys, then it's something like 50 something projects that I did. 3, 6, 10, 44, 54, yeah, 59 projects. But obviously if you take out the toys as all those separate ones, then it's more like about 30. But yeah, actually I'm quite happy with that. I think last year it was 40 something, but I'd say a lot of those were socks and not so many adult garments and things. So yeah, quite a lot achieved there. More than actually, I always think, oh, I haven't knitted very much. Oh, I really thought a couple of months ago, sort of October time, I thought I've really not knitted very much this year. But then when you actually look at it all, and this is what I love about Ravelry, because I do put all my projects into Ravelry, and so then I could just sort them by 2022, completed in 2022, and see everything I've done. And it was more than I thought. So you may have noticed I have still got my fingers wrapped, bandaged. They are healing, but they're healing very slowly. So yeah, about 2.5, nearly 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, I got frostbite on my fingers. I won't go through the details. This finger and thumb in particular. This one has healed quite well, but I'm still keeping it covered because the skin is beginning to crack and I'm worried about it getting infected. And my thumb, the skin has cracked, and I think where I'm knitting, the roughness of some of the wool that I've used, etc., was beginning to irritate the skin, so I'm keeping it wrapped still. I'm having to put lots of sort of like moisturiser or Vaseline on it, really, just to try and keep. So I don't think I'm going to be taking or keeping the dressings off, particularly my thumb, for quite a while. As you know, that really slowed down my plans and stopped me knitting on a couple of things. Having said that, my mum's gloves, I did get a bit more done on them. So I began to, yeah, So these are a pair of fingerless gloves for my mum. Although I say fingerless gloves, they are going to have part of the fingers and they're just not going to have the tops of the fingers. So they are going to be quite fiddly, which is why they've been on hold. Excuse me. I think I've just about got them to the point where I need to put the thumb stitches on scrap yarn. So I've done that much more, about another inch. And I think now I have to start knitting on the actual fingers separately. Gonna give it a go. We'll see how, I don't know what's good. Yeah, we'll see how I manage. Because again, like I say, the problem is that with this thumb not being out of action, but my thumbnail kind of being out of action, and it could be a bit fiddly, but I'm going to give it a go, do a bit more work on this in January and see. On the plus side, when my mum came up for Christmas, I showed it to her and she tried it on and the fit is absolutely fine. So I'm going to carry on with it. I'm going to try and carry on with it in January, and I've actually got down in my January goals, I think I've put down to actually finish them, but certainly to try and work on them in January. Let me have a look at my January goals. I've just put mum's gloves, I haven't said finish or whatever, so I'd like to work on them, and we'll see how we get on with the whole finger issue. But I had done a little bit of work on them. Right, where is my little list of how I'm doing this today? So, make 9. In January of this year, or about this time of December of last year, I made a make 9 list, which is something that makers, sometimes sewers and crafters do. 9 projects that you wanted to work on for the year. And I'm quite pleased because I think I've completed 5 of the 9. So I will put up here the picture of the 9 things, and I'm going to talk to you about them. So in the top left hand corner was the shawl, the Rock My Shawl, and I might have started it already in January, but I certainly finished that. That got finished. And then next to that was the colour block jumper, which was definitely started. I'd started it in the autumn. I absolutely finished that in the January. The next up there is the Star Trek socks. They did not get worked on. Now that was a project that I talked about in the last podcast, where I'd pretty much finished the whole of the first sock, and then discovered it was too small. And so my aim was last year to re-knit them, and I didn't. I'm going to roll those over to this coming year, 2023, and I want to finish those this year. Then I've got down that cute bunny jumper. Now I had planned to knit that for my daughter. It didn't happen. Don't know if it will happen either. I have got the yarn for it though, so it might get done. Then we've got that tartan wrap that I had started, and I realised maybe October, November, I thought that's never going to get worked on again. I wasn't enjoying knitting it, so I frogged that. I have actually completely ripped it out, and I will probably use the yarn for something else, colour work. Then next to that is the Love Note, which I did complete. I started that on January the 1st last year, and I think I had it finished by the end of January. I think it only took me 4 or 5 weeks to do. So that's done. So that was 1, 2, 3 done. Then on the bottom left is the Whitmore sweater. Never got that even started. That is rolling over though. I would like to do that next year. Then we've got the Jennifer Stein gas jumper, bottom middle. I did knit that, finished that for my daughter. Gave that to her in October. And then we've got those colourwork mittens, and I said that I wanted to get at least 1 pair of those colourwork mittens done, which I did. I got the October leaves ones done. So the Star Trek socks and the Whitmore sweater and those colourwork mittens are all going to roll over. Star Trek socks to aim to do, Whitmore sweater, and then I want to do another pair of those colourwork mittens. So those are 3 projects I definitely want to work on next year. I'm not going to put the bunny jumper on the list. It's in my Ravelry queue, and I haven't really done a make 9 as such this year because I've got so many things that I kind of want to do, some of which I haven't got a pattern for. So I want to do a colour work cowl, but I'm going to make that up as I go along. So it's really a case more, I think I'm just going to write myself a little list, but I'm not going to put up a Make 9 grid, because like the colour work cowl, I can't show you a picture of that because I don't know what it's going to look like. So I think I'm just going to make a list. Actually the whip make along that I'm going to be running, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, that's actually more important to me than 9 new projects. It's more important to me that I want to get quite a lot of my whips finished next year. So I've put together a bit of a plan. So in fact, let's talk about it now. Let's talk about the whip make along. I really want to do a make along properly this year. I said last year that when I tried to do a couple of make alongs, particularly in the summer months, it became very difficult for me when I was really busy with other work that I was doing, exam work. And so I'm aware that that might happen again this year, which is why I'm going to start it as a whip for January, February and March for the first quarter of the year. I would love to get some chat going on Ravelry with that as well. So we have got a Ravelry forum, a Ravelry group, and I would love it if some of you could join me on there. And I'm looking as well for somebody perhaps to volunteer, 1 or 2 people who perhaps do use Ravelry forums already and are au fait with how they work, who could be moderators on there and help me out, keep the conversation going, maybe invite other people onto there, and just help out with the Ravelry group. So if that's something you'd be interested in, I would love it if you could contact me, either by leaving a message below, but it's probably best if you email me or send me a private message on Ravelry. My username on Ravelry is Likac66. And my email address is littlelikac@gmail.com. So if you would be interested in helping with that, that would be great. So I want to have like a chat thread on there, and I would like to have a finished objects on there, thread on there. And perhaps even that we might draw monthly prizes if we get enough people and enough chat. We can, so if we get over 100 posts, for example, on the chat thread by the end of January, then I'll do it. In fact, let's just say, well, that's how I'll do it. I'll do the first giveaway once we get to 100 posts on the chat thread. So if that happens in January, then that's when we'll do it, etc. So as soon as we get the first 100 posts. If you can't use Ravelry, if you what's the other one? If you use the hashtag #CrackTheWhipMal on Instagram, then I will add your things into Ravelry from there. So what I mean by that is if you take a picture of a whip that you're going to work on that's not completed, you hashtag it with the hashtag #CrackTheWhip, I will post that. Excuse me, I can hear some kind of strange scraping noises out there. Right, let me start that again. If you use the hashtag #CrackTheWhipMal, and it's for an item that isn't finished yet, but you're working on it as a whip, I will put it into the chatter thread. I will put your picture in the Ravelry thread, that means then if when I come to draw prizes, it will count as a post, and when I come to draw prizes, if that's the number that comes up, you will win the giveaway, and I will contact you through Instagram. If it's a finished object that you have completed as part of the Crack the Whip, then it will go into the finished object thread. Hope that makes sense. So there will be at least two giveaways, one from the chatter thread and one from the finished objects. Okay, that is my husband there, scraping up leaves and things like that. So, little cameo from him, unless I've edited it out. He just suddenly appeared at the door. So yes, so that's the Crack the Whip Mal 2023. My plan is not to cast on something new until I have cast off a whip. And all my whips are things that have been started by the 31st of December, excuse me, and not finished. So anything that is unfinished, that is on the needles tomorrow, counts as a whip. Now, I'm going to confess something. I have a pair of socks, where are they, that are really very, very nearly finished. And I absolutely could finish them today, and they could then count as my last item for 2022, but I'm cheating. I'm holding on to these, and I'm going to finish them off tomorrow, so they are going to be my first whip completed, so I can have a win straight away, and also it then means I can cast something new on straight away. And one of my other rules, these are just my rules for how I'm going to work my whips. My rule is, if I want to cast on a pair of socks, I have to cast off a pair of socks, whip socks as well. So these are my Yarndale socks, and this is the second sock. And last time you saw this, I'd finished one and I'd literally only just cast on the second. So I've worked on these the last couple of weeks once my fingers started to heal, and literally I think I've got, I don't know, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So I don't know, I've got about 10 rounds left to do on the toes and then grafting them together, and they're going to be finished. So I'm going to finish those tomorrow so I can start cast on a new pair of socks. I suppose I could just cast on a new pair of socks today and then they will be a whip to work on. But no, I want a quick win. I want to feel straight away that I've got a whip completed on the 1st of January. So I'm going to finish that tomorrow. So it's a little bit cheating, but I want a quick win. So those are my Yarndale socks, which are in the West Yorkshire Spinners yarn colourway Nigel. Which is, and I call them my Yarndale socks because I bought the yarn in Yarndale, and that colourway Nigel is a colourway that West Yorkshire Spinners design specifically for Yarndale. And Yarndale, if you don't know, is a yarn festival held in Yorkshire in the UK. Right, voice is getting croaky, so I'm just going to pause while I have another little drink. Yes, if you have got any whips at all, works in progress, crochet or knit, that have been started by the 31st of December, and it doesn't matter what percentage, even if you've only just started on them, please feel free to enter them into our make-along. Okay, so I had talked about the anthology throw, which is something that I really, really wanted to cast on, and I was like, oh, I've got so many blankets on the go. But I did, I couldn't resist it, and I'm looking around. So this was a beautiful project bag that I got given by my husband for Christmas. I know it's quite autumnal. It is quite autumnal. I actually saw these project bags advertised in the autumn, and they're made with genuine Harris tweed in the bottom. I cannot remember the maker's name, so what I will ask my husband if he can find the email with the website, and I'll put the details up. It's got a gorgeous little wooden button. They were, I'm going to be honest, say they were more on the expensive side for project bags. They weren't bargain ones. But you can see there, you've got a genuine Harris tweed label. The colour is just such a beautiful dark purple, and I know it's quite autumnal. I will use that all year round. I think it's beautiful. So I decided not to wait for the anthology throw. I decided to cast it on actually as a Christmas Eve project. I didn't cast it on to quite late on Christmas Eve, and then I had thought, because the anthology throw is designed for advent calendars or using scraps, excuse me. You could probably do it in a gradient yarn, that would work. You know, if you've got one of those big balls of gradient yarn, that would look lovely as well. I decided that I was going to cast it on Christmas Eve, and my plan had been to try to do, like I had with the wrap, to try and do a colour a day. But actually it does take quite a while to put one colour in, so that's probably not going to happen. But here is what I've done. I think I've done 7 colours so far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I've done 7 colours. So you knit it in the round. I started mine on DPNs and then moved it onto a 16-inch circular. It is now, and then I think I've put it onto probably a 30-inch circular, something like that. It is now on a very big circular needle, as you can see. I've picked all my minis and I've wound them all. I picked all my minis and I've wound them all and organised them. These are the ones that I'm still going to be putting in. And I've organised them kind of in the order that they're going to carry on with. So, just got to work out what I'm putting in at the moment. I've just put in a variegated, and then I've got a plain one to go, and then it will carry on from there. It goes down to there, and then up there, and then down, etc. So I've organised the other minis to go in there. But I am not going to try to do a colour a day, because if I did that, especially once I go back to school, that's probably the only knitting I would get done on the day. So instead, I have set a target for this in January to do, I think, let me put 4 colours in January, so it's more like 1 colour a week through January. So this won't get finished for a couple of months at that rate, but that's okay. I would rather work on it at a reasonable pace and enjoy it than resent it because I'm trying to get a colour in, which is what I was beginning to feel like. Like yesterday, I really wanted to get that colour in, and I was still working on it at 1 o'clock this morning, and then I thought, that's ridiculous. There was no way I'm doing that when I'm back at work. So actually we'll concentrate on, let's say, getting in 1 colour per week, which might mean just doing one row a day. So do love it though. So the Anthology Throw is patterned by Helen Stewart. Absolutely love this. You can see different colours I've put in, but I did go through these, and this is not from an advent calendar. These are minis and scraps, leftovers. Some are minis that I've dyed, some are minis that I've bought from other people, like Ducky Darlings did a mini blanket set, set of 5 minis in different colours. I picked some pastel colours. They were going to go into one of my other blankets as it happens, but yeah, they've gone into there. And because I love pinks and purples, obviously I've got a lot of pinks and purples in my stash. But then I've gone through and I've got a couple of yellows and oranges as well that I think are going to go nicely in there. I hope so anyway. And grey, I think I've got a couple of greys in there as well. So that is going to be a whip that I'm carrying through, but I am, as I say, plan for January is to get 4 colours done on there. So by the time my next podcast, 2 weeks, in theory, there should be 2 colours in there, 2 more colours added in. Okay, so yeah, that was a cheat, because I knew that if I waited to January, then according to my whip rules, I wouldn't have been able to cast that on till I'd finished another blanket. And blankets can take quite a while. I have got a few blankets to work on. And I've done a similar thing. I've set myself targets, not necessarily to finish a blanket in January, but to get certain sections completed. So the Afghan, the Hearts Afghan that I showed, I think back in the summer, and I talked about last, just looking around, I need to find it. Anyway, the plan is to do 5 squares on that a month. If I do 5 squares on that per month, it's still going to take me 2 years to complete. But we're going to start off with 5 squares a month. It may be that I have a month where I work on it really hard and try and get more done. I'm going to try and show you that each time I finish a set of squares. So I can't remember exactly how many different squares there are, but let's say there's 12 different squares, because you might do like 6 of one square and however many of another square. So once I've completed a set of squares, I'll show you them then in the podcast. Okay, what else have I got planned for January? Quite a lot. Excuse me. The Cablemagoria blanket, which is an Aran blanket, I've put on there. I want to finish a section of that in January. So 5 squares of the Hearts Afghan, 1 section of the Cablemagoria blanket, finish the Yarndale socks, which I'll be ticking off tomorrow, Stitch on Sunday blanket. Plan is there are 5 Sundays. I'm going to try again to complete one of those for every Sunday in the month. So there are 5 Sundays in January, so I'm going to try and complete 5 squares on that. They won't necessarily all get done on the Sunday. 4 colours on the Anthology Throw. Mum's gloves to work on those. Louis the Owl. If you remember, Louis the Owl was a Christmas present that didn't get finished for Bryony. I haven't put a target as to exactly whether to get that finished. I would like to get that finished in January though, to be honest. Mum's gloves, just work on them. Hoodie, I've got, so I can't cast on any new garments, adult garments anyway, until I've finished this adult garment. So I've put on my January target list to complete the body of this. And this is knit in a worsted weight. And it's the cable crush hoodie. So I've put on my target to finish the body of that. We shall see. And then I have put, this is 2 more sort of like long-term projects for next year that I'm going to talk to you a bit about. Knit a gift. So I really do want to try and stash. Let's talk about stash. I am never going to say go on a yarn diet, because I think the moment you tell yourself you can't buy something or eat something or do something, my brain just wants to do it even more. So I'm not saying that I'm not going to buy any more yarn. Also, as a yarn dyer, that's not a very good thing for me to say to people, is it? And I know for a fact then, for example, the mystery yarn club that I'll be doing again in 2023, I'll keep a skein of that for myself every month. Of course I will. So that's 12 skeins of yarn that are going to come into my possession next year anyway. But I do want to knit more out, get more out of my stash than I put in. That is, and I really, really, really want to stop particularly buying like Aldi yarn cheap just because I see it, and I'm, yeah, I'm gonna really try and cut back on that anyway. So one of the things I want to try and get rid of is I've got lots of maybe 2 balls of something, 1.5 balls of something that are left over from other projects. And every year when it gets to about December, I really regret that I haven't got gifts that I can give to other people, particularly work colleagues. So one of the things that I really want to try to do is put together a collection of knitted gifts made from scrap projects, ends of yarn, ends of yarn, you know what I mean, end of project leftovers. I've got all those pom poms, so I want to make some hats, some fingerless gloves, using DK, using chunky that I've got left over, holding DK double, things like that, so they'll be quick to make. Maybe do some scrappy socks, maybe some DK socks, and just try and put together a pile of gifts. Either that I can then just gift to individuals during the year or in autumn, Christmas time. Ideally though, I've got this crazy idea that I would love to have a big pile to be able to take into work to give to my department and put them in the staff room and label them up and say, everybody help yourself to one item. However, there are over 30 people in my department, so that's a bit of a pipe dream. But you never know. If I start off by doing hats, particularly DK or chunky hats or Aran weight hats, they're going to be quite quick to do. So I've put knit a gift on there. Also, another knitting gift that I want to do. I'm looking around because somewhere I have. Oh, where has it gone? Aha. So, a couple of weeks ago, beginning of December, I showed you this yarn that I had got in a swap, a Christmas Secret Santa swap. And I got these 2 amazing skeins of fingering weight yarn, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I also said I thought that they needed a wash or something because the white pits felt very stiff. Well, one of my friends, Vicky, left a comment on YouTube actually on the video telling me that the reason why these bits were stiff is because they were treated with something to make them glow in the dark. I kid you not. And in fact, the colourway for this yarn is actually called Glow, and it's by Rosie's Moments. Now I don't know if she sells this anymore or not. So the white bits, the undyed bits, actually glow in the dark, and I've tested this out and they absolutely do. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have got glow in the dark yarn. That didn't, however, make it any easier for me to work out what I was going to knit with it for myself. I have a daughter who is a uni student. Oh, by the way, yes, those rainbow socks that I knitted for her, she loves them. Gave them to her Christmas Day. She's worn them every day since. I have to make sure I get them washed before she goes back to uni. She has worn them every day. She absolutely loves them. And her friends at uni, her housemates, are all crafters as well. A lot of them crochet, do cross stitch. And I love the fact that her student house, they sit there in the evenings working on their crafty projects. And apparently they're a bit jealous of her knitted socks. So I was like, oh my gosh, students are going to love glow-in-the-dark yarn, surely. But there's only 2 skeins, and there are 5 people in her house. Kind of 6, but that's a different story. Anyway, including herself, 6. And I was like, well, I can't make 6 pairs of socks out of this. But then I thought, yes, I can. I can use this in 6 pairs of socks. So over the next 6 months, I'm going to knit a pair of socks each month that include this glow-in-the-dark yarn. So I'm going to split it into 6. So it's about 33 grams each. And I'm going to combine it with a different yarn. So all 6 of her housemates, all 6 of them in the house, will have a pair of socks which have got glow-in-the-dark yarn. And I will have them finished by June, by the time they break up for summer. Yeah, so they can have kind of matching socks. So that meant I wanted some solid colours to match with them. So I did go online and buy some stuff. Of course I did. So I placed an order on Lovecrafts because they had got a sale on. So I went and had a look for some sock yarn that I thought I could match with this glow-in-the-dark pink and cream. And I found on their sale Valley Yarns, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon sock yarn in 50-gram hanks, and it was on offer, £3 something a hank or skein. So I got one in this green to do contrast, one in this blue to go as a contrast, one in a dark grey, one in a pale grey, 1, 2, 3, 4, oh, and one in a pale green. I also then got a cream one, but I don't know that I am going to use that. I did get signature paw ply in this purple though, so I think I'll use that one for the 6th. That does count to 6, doesn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. So those are the yarns that I'm going to use, excuse me, to contrast with this. And then, as if that wasn't enough, Stephen West has released an ebook of sock patterns, although, excuse me, itchy nose now. So, and I really liked the first pattern that came out, which is the painting bricks pattern. Now, I wouldn't wear them for myself particularly, maybe in muted colours, but I thought, oh my goodness, they would make a great pair to use the glow in the dark as the contrast colour, and then one of these as the main colour. So I thought Stephen West's designs are quite funky. If I'm going to be knitting socks for a load of students, young people, his designs are potentially going to be really good. And you could see actually, they're not like a mystery, because I know I did a whole rant, it wasn't a rant, but I did a whole thing about why I wouldn't knit a Stephen West mystery knit along, but these aren't mystery because you can see pictures of all the socks. And I thought they are going to be really good designs for students. So yeah, so that is the plan. So as soon as I've got the Yarndale socks finished, which will be tomorrow, I'm going to cast on the first pair of student socks. That's what I'll call them, the student socks. And that first pair is going to be in the Stephen West painting bricks design. So I need to wind up all of these so that I've got them prepped and get them put in a bag all together so I can just pull them out. So yeah, that is the plan. So that will be 6 pairs of socks to knit, preferably, hopefully 1 pair a month over the first 6 months of the year. That's the plan. To be fair, If it takes longer, it might be that they are a housewarming gift for them, because the house that she's in, the housemates are all staying together, but next year they are going to have to move house for their final year. So it could be that they're a housewarming present as they go into their new house in September. That might be how that gets done. So one of the first cast-ons of the year is going to be that pair of socks, and I have got it as a plan is to finish that pair of cast on and finish that pair of socks in the first month. I'll put those together in one. And the last, I think that's all of the, yeah, those are all the projects that I'm planning on for January. The last thing that I was going to show you, though, kind of like an acquisition, was my finished Winnie the Pooh Advent set. I'm not sure if I've shown you any of these before on the podcast, but my lovely friend Nancy put together a really, really lovely Advent set for me, based on Winnie the Pooh. I think this was day 25, and it's Eeyore's birthday balloon. And I didn't know what I was going to make with them. And then I had a brainwave, and I was on a knit group, a Zoom group with some other knitting friends a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, and another Nancy, actually a different Nancy, was talking about her litmus cowl, and I was suddenly like, oh, litmus cowl, that's something that I've been wanting to make. It's been on in my queue for ages. Really want to do a litmus cowl. These 10-gram minis will be absolutely perfect for them. So look at all these beautiful minis. So I'm going to organise them into colour. I think I'm going to try and do them a bit of almost like a rainbow, so the blues together, the oranges together, etc. So then I was trying to think about contrast yarn. I wanted to use cream. Now I haven't got any cream. I've just shown you I've got 50 grams of cream, that won't be enough. And because I'm really, really trying to use stash, not buy more. So I went into my stash and I found this sparkling sock yarn. And I know it's got a little bit of variegation in it, but it's not very much. So I think that will work really nicely as a contrast, or as the main colour, and then put the minis. Oh, excuse me. So I think that will work really well. And this yarn is Knitology, which is from Knit Crate, which was a subscription box I had a little while ago. And it is 70% superwash merino, 20% nylon and 10% stellina, so it's sparkly as well. And you know how I love my sparkly. So this is Sparkling Sock by Knitology. That's going to be my contrast. I cannot cast this on till I finish something else. Either the anthology throw, although I know this isn't a throw, my plan would be that the Knitology is not the Advent. No. Anthology throw is designed as a minis project, and the litmus cowl is designed as a minis project. So it could be that I have to wait till I finish the anthology throw before I cast this on. Or what else have I got on the needles that could count? I was going to say if I'd got anything else that was like for the neck, but I haven't. I haven't got any shawls or wraps or other cowls. So yeah, it might be that I have to do the anthology throw before I get this one cast on. But also, in fact, actually I need to transfer it into this lovely, lovely Winnie the Pooh bag that she gave me. So at some point though, I will wind them all and transfer them into there and organise them into colours, and then into the numbers that I want to do it in. So but I think February will be the earliest that gets cast on. It's not a January project. Right, okay. Oh, last thing, you might have seen this in the background. So this was something else I got given for Christmas. I didn't get a lot of knitting things for Christmas, and I didn't ask for much, to be fair. I got that beautiful project bag. I got all that lovely Winnie the Pooh Advent from Nancy. But I did ask for this. This isn't knitting though, it's weaving. And it's a weaving loom. And I have been toying with getting a weaving loom for ages. And when we go to knitting shows, wool shows, I often go over to the stands where they've got weaving looms and have a little play. But they are quite expensive. But Sostrine Green, I don't know if you've heard of them, is a shop, kind of like a craft shop and lifestyle shop, and we've just had a new one open in Derby as it happens, but when we were in Chester, when did we go to Chester? In November, they'd got a sausage green in there, and I went, oh, that's a new shop, we've got one of those just open in Derby, should we just pop in and have a look and see what it's like? And I saw these in there, and they were only 20 something pounds, I don't know, 25, 28 pounds, something like that, less than 30, between 25 and 30 pounds I think. And I was like, oh my goodness, there's a weaving loom for less than 30 pounds. And I said to my husband and the daughter that I was with at the time, if you're looking for ideas for me for Christmas, they've got weaving looms in here which are far cheaper than, you know, ones at yarn shows, etc. So my daughter went and got one for me. Now, I had a toy weaving loom as a child, which I really enjoyed using. I see people weaving sometimes, obviously on big looms, etc. So I'm going to have a play with it, and I guess I've got quite a lot of cotton in my stash, so I'm guessing maybe at some point I could attempt to make like a tea towel or something like that. Because that's the thing, is I bought it and I'm not really sure what to make with it. I know some people make like wall hangings with different kind of textures, and I'm going to be honest and say that's not me. That is not what I want to make, and I don't like those for myself. I would never put one up on my wall, so please don't suggest I make a wall hanging with lots of different textures and fabric yarn. That's not me, that's not what I want. I'm more likely to want to try and make something like some fabric, although I don't sew, so what's a... Anyway, if you've got any ideas on tutorials that I can look at, I mean, yes, obviously I'm going to need to look at how to set it up in the first place, but then really what I'm looking for are tutorials on actually to make something that actually looks like a piece of cloth, not something that's kind of random lumps and bumps on it. And if that's your bag, I'm not saying, because everybody likes different things, please don't be insulted, that is not something one that I want to make, or two that I would do anything with after I make it. So yeah, I know the first thing I make is going to be all over the place, because that's one thing I remember from doing it as a child, is trying to keep the edges even. So I know the first thing I make is just going to be a bit of mess and a bit random, but I want to look at stuff that I can then actually try and make some nice bits of cloth. Don't know what I'm going to do with those bits of cloth. I would love to get to a point where I could sort of then, you know, use it as a bit of a bag to make. Maybe that's the final dream. So if you've got some ideas for me on, or you can point me in the direction of some YouTube tutorials or anything like that. I've seen ones for getting it set up. That's probably not what I'm looking for. It's more where I'm looking for the idea of actually then how to create something that's going to look attractive. Right, okay, I think I'm done. This has turned out to be a lot longer than I expected it to be. I hope it hasn't been too boring for you. Thank you so much for joining me. Please, please, please join in the whip make along. I would love to see what you're working on, what whips you're going to challenge yourself to complete, and let's get some whips done. Are you going to do the same as me and kind of limit what you can cast on till you've got some whips completed? I don't know how long that's going to last for me, by the way. I want that to last quite a while. So I'm not stopping myself from casting anything on in respect of, you know, I've got to complete all the whips before I cast something new on. But one whip has to be completed, something that was started before Christmas, before I can, sorry, something that was started before the beginning of the year, before I can cast on a new project. Thank you once again for joining me, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. Happy New Year, everybody. Bye.